As well, we've got Paul Curtis in the studio. Hi, Paul. How are you?
Hi, very well, thank you. Thanks for having me.
Excellent to see you, and thanks for coming in. Now, the big news, as far as you're concerned, is you've got an EP. It's your first sort of proper EP that's coming out. I say coming out. It's kind of available.
Yes, it's out now. Yeah.
But is it one of these in incredibly modern style? It's available as download only. Is that?
Yeah, that's right. It's one of these DIY jobs, done through online distributors and what have you.
But you can get it on iTunes and everything.
Yes, it's on iTunes, Amazon, 7 Digital, and Spotify.
Fantastic. So tell us about the actual EP. What the songs. How many? It's 4 tracks, isn't it?
4 tracks, yeah. Well, I've done 3 sort of demo albums, and they're all songs taken from those. 2 of them I've given a good rework and remixed them. Quite different to the original versions, and I just wanted to get something put out because I've written a rock opera which I'm in the process of recording, and it's taken an awfully long time, and I've not sort of put anything out for a long time. I mean, the things I've previously put out has just been sort of CDs that I've sold at gigs, sort of thing. I've done myself, but the last one was sort of 4 years ago that I did, and so with the amount of time that's passing whilst I'm recording my new stuff, I just wanted to put something out, and with the opportunities, as I say, that you can just do it yourself online now.
Absolutely. Yeah, that's great. I mean, I often say to bands that we have in the studio, it's incredible what you can do now compared to even sort of 10 years ago, let alone back when I was a student.
Absolutely,
and we had to get Tascam Porter Studios hired and stuff for the weekend. It's incredible what you can do, and you can actually you've got a brand new website as well, haven't you, to promote all this stuff?
Literally just gone live with that,
And the website address for that, you'll have to get that.
It's www.paulcurtis.info.
Very easy to remember. Excellent. And the songs then, for those that people who might be listening who haven't actually seen you live or don't know your stuff, then are these songs that are on the EP, are they quite new songs, or are they live favourites?
Certainly 1 or 2 of them are live favourites. Yeah, they're from my first 2 demo albums, so it's older stuff really. It was it was written sort of quite a long time before it was recorded. The first demo versions, that is. The oldest track was written when I was only about 19. So they're quite old. They've existed for a long time. I've been playing them for a long time, but the recordings, the original versions were done sort of 4 or 5 years ago. So 2 of those are exactly as they were, but 2 of them, as I say, very much reworks.
And how did you go about recording these? Have you actually got your own recording facilities, or are you? Yeah,
it's all done at home. Just on a 12-track digital recording studio, which has inbuilt drum and bass parts that can be programmed. So I've programmed those, but everything else on there I'm playing or singing. Yeah.
Amazing. You probably couldn't have done that when you were 19, could you?
Absolutely. I wish all these things were available sort of 15 years ago. Who knows where I'd have been now.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. Well, there's still time. Look at the Rolling Stones, they're knocking on a bit. They're still the odd penny or 2.
Just a bit. A few more than me.
Yeah. I mean, just going back then, you've obviously been writing and performing music for a long time. I mean, have you kind of have you always written? You mentioned when you were 19. Now, I mean, have you always kind of written your own stuff, or I mean?
I started writing my own stuff when I was 18. I learnt guitar from 16, and then my first songs I started at 18. And it was always my dream to sort of form a band and become a huge rock legend and everything. But it's it didn't happen, did it? So, but I've always enjoyed writing my stuff. And
So have you actually been in bands as well, or how did they? I'm always intrigued because when I mentioned just before that last record, we had Justin Sullivan from New Model Army, and now he's associated with a band, but he's also got his own solo stuff. He has had a solo album out, and it always intrigues me as to that kind of like decision as to kind of whether you're going to be in a band or do stuff on your own. I mean, how did that happen with you?
Yeah, well, I was in 3 bands through the 90s, sort of whilst I was a student in the main, and it got to the point. I mean, those bands sort of all ended for various reasons, and I wanted to form a new band. And when you get to that sort of stage of life where people have got jobs and band members have families and so on, unless you've got a group of people that are totally committed to the cause, it's very, very difficult to get it off the ground. And that's what I found. And then it was actually the Ray Davies Storyteller tour that sort of made me think, well, why don't I just go out on my own, and I could do that just just an acoustic guitar. So that's how it happened.
That must have been quite scary, though. Was it the first time you did it and went out there sort of?
Yeah, well, I'm always a bit nervous to begin with, to be honest. But yeah, I mean, you get used to it as time goes on. I'd played solo before, sort of in the period of time whilst I was in bands. I'd do the odd bit on my own, and I did the odd sort of support slot for mates' bands on my own and stuff like that. Yeah. So it wasn't a totally new thing.
Yeah. It always. I mean, speaking of someone who's fairly rudimentary musician, been in bands, it's I'm normally the bass player, so I can sort of hide at the back really and do the odd bit of backing vocal. So when you're in a band, it's almost like I often get the feeling of like safety in numbers. Whereas so I always admire bands. The fewer there are in a band, and there's like fewer of you, and the less places to hide. And the ultimate, I suppose, is like the solo performer. So
well, in actual fact, one of the bands I was in, I was just the singer. I only used to play guitar on 1 or 2 tracks. So, and that was, I felt more self-conscious doing that than I do sort of playing on my own. At least I've got a guitar to stand behind, and something to do with my hands,
Yeah, I suppose So what? I mean, have you done lots of gigging? You mentioned just while we were chatting before we came on air that you've not done many gigs lately. I mean, you've done plenty of gigs in your time there, have you?
Yeah. I mean, they're sort of they're regular, if a bit infrequent. I tend to gig maybe once a month on average. Occasionally a couple of times a month.
Yeah, and you're based in Leeds, really, rather than Bradford, obviously. So is it mainly in Leeds that you play, or do you go further afield?
Lately it has been. I've played a lot of gigs in Bradford in the past, but I've not played in Bradford for a good 3 or 4 years, I think, now. So at the moment I've been playing some regular venues in Leeds, but I'm hoping to expand it a little bit now. Cool.
What sort of venues do you play in Bradford? Can you remember where any of the...
I used to play a place called the Salthorn quite regularly. Which never used to get many in, and just a handful, but they used to enjoy it. But I played there very regularly for about a 6 or 8 month period or something like that. But I think that fell through. There's a lot of pubs are doing that sort of fell through because they weren't getting the customers into the door in any case.
It's unfortunately a familiar refrain, bemoaning the kind of live music scene the way it's going, and particularly in Bradford, a lot of venues are sort of closing down really. But the other thing I was going to ask you about was your whole kind of like influences and where you see yourself on the kind of musical spectrum, because again, people sort of tend to see solo singer-songwriters and tend to sort of automatically slot you into a kind of a folk sort of idiom, which clearly isn't necessarily the case. I mean, where do you mentioned it's got Ray Davies, Kinks presumably a big influence.
Absolutely, yeah. I've got a holy trinity, which is the Kinks, the Who, and Queen. They're my 3 biggies. Huge influences. I mean, as a songwriter, probably Ray Davies the most. But I mean, musically, I probably enjoy Queen the most.
It's interesting, isn't it, as well, that the kind of bands you listen to and enjoy the most and admire the most don't always necessarily, it doesn't always follow that they're the kind of people that you end up sort of sounding like, whether consciously or unconsciously, because sometimes, I don't know, I mean, particularly you mentioned Queen. I mean, it's pretty difficult to sort of sound like Freddie Mercury, really, because he was a bit of a one-off, wasn't he? Really?
Absolutely, yeah.
And it would be a bit silly to try to.
Although, I mean, I do some covers in my gigs, and I do some Queen ones. And when I do covers by anybody, really, I do generally try and emulate them as near as is possible, just with an acoustic guitar. You know.
Sure, yeah. But I suppose the influence is again when it comes to songwriting, it's perhaps more to do with almost like the structure and feel, isn't it? Really, of how a song. Certainly, the stuff I've heard of yours, I can kind of see that kind of Kinks sort of storytelling, type vibe in there, even if it doesn't sort of sound like a Kinks song.
Yeah. Probably a small amount. There's to a small degree that's perhaps true of what I've put out so far. Obviously, very much the case with the rock opera that I've written. I'm in the process of recording at the moment. Very much is obviously a story all the way through. Is that one?